Welcome to the deep dive. We're excited today to get into some really impactful global news, stories that are definitely shaping things right now. Our plan, as always, is to look past the quick headlines. We want to pull out the key insights and, connect the dots for you. Think of it as a shortcut to getting informed without drowning in information. Today, we're drawing from Griffic, that's the global news intelligence platform. Specifically, their top 10 stories from the last 12 hours or so on Wednesday, July 23rd, 2025.
And it's quite a mix, really. We're touching on geopolitics, economics, global health, even shifts in international law. What's fascinating, I think, is seeing how these things aren't separate. They're all connected, showing this complex dance between, say, international cooperation and, well, nations looking out for themselves.
That interconnectedness is exactly it. It makes these stories so much more, meaningful. Let's start with something pretty big in global governance, historic, really. The International Court of Justice, the ICJ, they've just issued a landmark climate advisory opinion. This is where the court is tackling nations' legal duties on cutting emissions and the potential fallout if they cause environmental harm. But here's the interesting part, right? It's non-binding. So what does that actually mean in practice for international law? How can something not legally binding still have, teeth?
That's a great question. It gets into this idea of soft law. Even though it's not like a court judgment you have to follow, legal experts think this could really set precedents. It could shape future climate lawsuits all over the world.
Ah, okay. So it influences things indirectly.
Exactly. It signals a kind of emerging consensus in international legal thought. It makes it harder for countries to just say, oh, we didn't know or we don't have an obligation. Plus, it can empower environmental groups in their own national courts. It might even, open the door for some states to seek compensation from major emitters, even without the ICJ forcing the issue. It's like a strong moral and legal guidepost.
Right. So advisory opinions are gaining more practical influence then. That definitely changes the game for nations. And speaking of changing legal frameworks, we're seeing individual countries acting too. Look at the UK's new sanctions. They've rolled out what they're calling the world's first global sanctions regime. This targets individuals and networks involved in irregular migration, gives authorities power to freeze assets, impose travel bans.
Yeah, that's a genuinely new tactic. It's a big shift. Instead of just sanctioning states or beefing up border controls, they're using financial tools, travel restrictions, to go after the individual facilitators, no matter where they are or what nationality they hold. It's a strategy that, could break up these networks in a different way. But of course, it also brings up tricky questions about sovereignty, about one country's laws reaching into another's territory.
Definitely complex. Okay, moving from law to, very urgent human realities, we have to address the situation in Gaza. Aid groups, MSF, Oxfam, the UN, they're sounding the alarm. A mass starvation warning. The numbers are just devastating. The Guardian reported over 1,000 Palestinians have reportedly died trying to get food since May. 72 more just in the past day alone. Calls for a ceasefire are getting louder globally.
It's incredibly dire, and it highlights the huge difficulties in getting aid where it's needed. People taking desperate measures.
Yeah.
And related to aid efforts, there was the Gaza Freedom Flotilla back on July 13th. Remember the ship? The Handala.
Yes, I do.
It set sail from Italy carrying activists, journalists, medical teams. Their stated aim was to break Israel's naval blockade, deliver aid. It's just one of several recent attempts like this. Shows how persistent that global push is to get help into Gaza, despite all the blockades and obstacles.
A real example of civil society trying to respond. Meanwhile, in other parts of the world, alliances are actually strengthening. Let's shift gears to a different geopolitical track. The Kensington Treaty. This was signed between the UK and Germany just recently, July 17th. PM Starmer and Chancellor Merz in London.
Right, the Kensington Treaty. It's pretty broad, actually. Covers defense cooperation, coordinating on the war in Ukraine, working together on defense technology.
So what does that signal for Europe?
Well, it signals a clear deepening of that strategic partnership, especially between two major European powers. In the face of ongoing conflicts and security worries, it shows a strong commitment to shared defense coordinated action. That's quite significant in today's global climate.
Okay, let's pivot now to economics, starting with some perhaps more positive news. The new U.S.-Japan trade deal. The agreement is to cut U.S. tariffs on Japanese cars down from 25% to 15%. Beyond the immediate market buzz, what's the bigger picture here? What might it mean for, say, consumers like you?
Oh, it's definitely seen as a positive move. You saw the immediate reaction. Japanese automaker stocks jumped. Toyota up 15%, Mazda 17%.
Wow.
Yeah, and it boosted the Nikkei index, lifted market sentiment globally. But digging a bit deeper, this deal also kind of signals a strategic alignment, right? The U.S. and Japan may be positioning themselves against potential protectionism elsewhere, like from the EU or China.
Interesting angle.
For the listener, yeah, it could mean Japanese cars become a bit more competitively priced, but it also maybe strengthens this sort of democratic economic bloc in global trade talks, which affects supply chains, the whole landscape.
That makes sense. But with any trade shift like this, are there potential downsides? Any industries that might feel the pinch, even if the overall mood is good?
That's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, theoretically, cutting tariffs on imports could increase pressure on domestic U.S. automakers,
Yeah.
potentially affect their market share, maybe even some jobs in specific areas.
Right.
But the general feeling seems to be that the benefits, more trade, more stability, probably outweigh those localized concerns in this case.
Always a balancing act. Now, contrasting that bit of positive momentum, let's look at the Bank of Japan. There's talk of a likely rate hike. A recent poll suggests they'll probably raise rates by 25 basis points by the end of 2025.
Yeah, and the main reason seems to be tackling inflation. That's the consistent message. But it's such a delicate dance for central banks right now.
Yeah.
You got trade tensions swirling, political instability. It really is like playing Jenga, isn't it?
That's a good analogy.
Trying to pull out the inflation block without making the whole economic structure wobble. It shows that global challenge. Curb inflation, but don't kill growth, especially when outside factors are so unpredictable.
Absolutely. And sticking with trade, let's hop over to Canada. Prime Minister Mark Carney is meeting with provincial leaders in Muskoka. Apparently, they're discussing how to respond to potential U.S. tariffs and also looking at boosting trade within Canada itself.
Right, and that really shows the ripple effects, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Even the threat of tariffs from a major partner like the U.S. forces other countries to strategize. They start looking inward, thinking about how to protect their own economy, maybe strengthen internal supply chains. It just highlights how governments constantly need to adapt to this shifting global trade picture. Sometimes that means reinforcing national ties, even while being part of the global system.
Makes sense. Okay, from trade, let's turn to global health. The WHO has put out a pretty serious warning about Chikungunya virus making a comeback. It's spread by mosquitoes, as many know, and it's apparently affecting Europe now and other regions too.
Yeah, and what's worrying is that it feels like history repeating. The reports mention the symptoms high fever, severe joint pain, and they explicitly say it's echoing the severity of the big 2005 epidemic.
I remember that. Caused quite a bit of disruption.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it raises these broader concerns about, emerging diseases or re-emerging ones like this. We need strong global surveillance, rapid response systems.
Yeah.
Especially as things like climate change might be expanding where these mosquitoes can live.
It really drives home how interconnected and, frankly, vulnerable we still are. Okay, one last story to round things out, a major business shift. Paramount is reportedly thinking about closing its Africa units, its offices and channels there. Part of a bigger international strategy review, it seems.
Yes, and obviously that raises concerns locally about Paramount's future presence on the continent. But looking more broadly, it tells us something about how global media companies are rethinking things. They're constantly evaluating where they should be, especially in diverse, fast-changing markets like Africa.
So it might not just be a simple withdrawal.
Possibly not. It could be part of a larger restructuring, maybe shifting focus towards, say, digital streaming instead of traditional channels. That's a trend we're seeing across the industry, really. Optimizing resources, pivoting models.
Wow, okay, what a range we've covered just now. From, international law setting new precedents to urgent humanitarian crises, then shifting alliances, big economic deals and central bank moves, health warnings, major corporate strategy shifts. It really hammers home how linked everything is.
It truly does. And understanding these individual pieces, well, it helps you, the listener, start to see that bigger, more complex global picture taking shape. What's really striking is just the sheer speed of change across so many different areas at once. And that constant tension, between working together globally and focusing on national interests, it's playing out everywhere.
Absolutely. So as you digest all of that, here's something to mull over. Given this rapid pace of change we've just discussed, what's one area from today's deep dive, just one that you think might have the most unexpected ripple effects globally in the next, say, 6 months? Definitely something to think about. We really encourage you to keep digging into these topics yourself. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.